So I remember shortly before May 2nd, I think it was Emperor Hirohito's birthday, April 29th, the day anniversary of Mussolini hanging upside down. He was shot and killed the day before, April 28th. So I said a prayer to Charles Lindbergh because I was studying Mussolini on my phone, and this guy comes up to me and he says, "Do you know who that is?" And I said, "No, I don't." But he asked me, "What are you doing on your phone?" I said, "Oh, just talking to somebody about Mussolini, looking up some facts and stuff." And he said, "Well, that's interesting because he said, Charles Lindbergh was a bit of a fascist." Well, I don't know. He said he sympathized, for one thing. I think this guy was thinking, not fascism resembles Nazism, and it really does not. Fascism was the first enemy of the Nazis militarily, and it was extremely different. But anyway, yeah, I guess he did have some sympathies for, and he had a child get kidnapped and murdered, and it was a terrible thing too. And but he. Anyway, so the guy left, and then he returned, and he said, "So did you look up Charles Lindbergh?" I said, "No, I'm still talking about Mussolini." He said, "How can you call yourself an American if you don't know who Charles Lindbergh is?" And it was just kind of interesting, though, because at that time, being that I was actually studying Mussolini, and he was a sympathizer with something that eventually Mussolini fell into becoming an ally of someone he didn't want to be because of but yeah, Charles Lindbergh would fight the Japanese. He was okay with that, but he was not okay fighting the Germans. It was definitely kind of like a meant to be thing, because I was asking Charles Lindbergh, could you be like an aviator that gets me to where I need to be in life? And then somebody knocks on my door and they say, "Could you watch this?" Because he's a homeless guy. "Could you watch this flag? It's a flag of the Bloody Red Baron." It was a kite, okay? So it's like a kite of a plane that's modeled after the Bloody Red Baron's plane. That he belonged to the flying circus, and then I go and I check the date for my next doctor's appointment, and it's May 2nd. Well, that's the birthday of the Bloody Red Baron, so that's a very interesting coincidence. And then there's also the coincidence that I got discharged on April 28th, and there were all these Tampax, pads on this in the woods when I went for a walk that day. And it was well, I'm discharging, and those are absorbance maxi pads to absorb discharge. And I thought that was kind of funny because right afterwards there's the Bloody Red Baron. They called the Bloody Red Baron Count Dracula, and he was an amazing pilot. I don't see them as really necessarily the bad guys in World War II. In World War III they were terrible, but in World War II they were simply responding to a nation that had been bullied and their leaders assassinated, and they entered that war actually kind of for very noble reasons, really. I mean, to try to help somebody who's getting bullied and avenge somebody who was unjustly assassinated. I mean, and then all these other countries, and they were also fighting communism, and then all these countries got involved in it, and next thing you know, both sides are using mustard gas and dug in, and fighting the most costly war in history. But they really weren't the bad guys. I mean, it turned into something where both sides were terrible, really. But, and then the loss of that war and the Treaty of Versailles and so many things led to wanting to eliminate everything from the country that is, and everything from Europe, really, that is, has ties to the Bolsheviks, or that is not good for society and not patriotic. And so it wasn't just the Jews, it was gypsies, and it was people that are disabled, and anybody that's not extremely patriotic and who's not helping build and is not for putting not good for society, eliminate them. And so that's exactly what they did. I mean, they were terrible, but a lot of good people can be drafted into doing those terrible things when they're very young, and we have to always keep that into account. And sometimes a person becomes a monster because of how much grief they have gone through, and they would have been different. A dog who is very mean could have been a very good dog if that same dog was not raised to be in the dog fights and tortured and unloved. It really affects a person, and so we always have to keep that in mind. These monsters are not they don't enjoy life. They're very tortured souls, and that should help us forgive them. God bless.